Hello. Welcome to the stream. Oh yeah, let's focus on that. Okay. Saturday, July 4th. Happy July 4th. Independence Day for everybody in America. Saturday, July 4th. Today's day, 4,908 days in a row of art for me. Yay. And I want to get right into it. I want to get back to the TLDW, Too Long Didn't Watch, that I like to get into with these videos because streams go long. I go on tangents, all that other kind of stuff. But if you're an individual that's coming into this as just a quick video to learn a little bit of something, I'm going to go over real quick everything that I'm going to cover in the stream while working on this painting here. So I'll be doing both at the same time. But I want to give you kind of like that preview and that quick bang for your buck at the beginning, the TLDW. And today I want to talk about the importance of sharing your artwork. And basically because I'm finding true fulfillment in sharing my work. And I didn't think so. I didn't think I would find this kind of fulfillment in sharing my work. Years ago, 20 years ago, I was like really negative on that, but now it's really fantastic. And I was thinking about this because last night I was at this pop-up art show that was put on by a friend Amy here. Thank you so much, Amy. It was fantastic. And it was more about connection with other artists and other people rather than sitting there and trying to bark out like buy my artwork and sales and marketing and all that kind of stuff. More about the connection to other artists, to the community, and finding fulfillment within that. And I prefer that most of all. I don't like being sold stuff. I don't like ads popping up in front of my face, and I don't like people coming to my door and trying to sell me things, stuff like that. And I don't like being on that side of the door either. But when I can be in an environment where I'm sharing my work and I'm focusing on connection, I think we all can do that. And that's where we can start. And because 20 years ago, the one thing I don't talk about, I do talk about a lot that I had this big hiatus in my art time, 5 years away from, painting and getting to painting and things like that. I'm back to it now, 4,908 days in a row. But one of the reasons why I fell off like that track is I had a one-man show with all my artwork, and I just really disliked the whole selling of that thing. And it was one of the things that the impetus, one item within that led me to not doing art for a long time. And now as I'm older, I'm a little bit more wiser, just a little bit more wiser. Now I can see the focus on connection over selling, over putting sales first in a lot of ways. And the one thing I want to address is a lot of people, when I talk to them about sharing their work, they say, I'm not good enough. And it's interesting that I'm working on a painting right now. This painting is called Enough. Here's the reference to it right here. The reference for this painting, or the title of this painting, is called Enough. And it kind of matches in a lot of ways. We always worry, all of us worry. Hi, Michael, welcome. About being enough. I'm not good enough is usually what we say. And everyone feels this. This is common humanity. I feel this today. Like even when I'm going to go to this pop-up art show, that's just a quick thing, that's really nice. It's not like in a perfect space, but I always feel like, this painting's not good enough. This painting's not good enough. Still 20 years later, I'm still feeling that. And the way I look at it is this: all museums, all galleries out there, no matter how prestigious, they're full of subjectively good and subjectively bad artwork. That's anywhere. So when we look at our work and we say it's not good enough, it's bad, it's still a subjective thing. And I've found that over the years, no matter what, the more people that I share my artwork with, even the things that I dislike, there's someone out there that will love it. I'll write that down. There is someone out there that will love it. Always remember that. If you dislike it, someone will love it. And remove the comparison between yourself and others, because you're on your own journey. We're all learning and getting better as we're sharing our work. We're socializing the fact that we're learning more about ourselves. We're learning more about the complexity of oil painting and all that goes into it. And this is my progress. Please come in and share my journey. Here's where I'm at in my journey. And to be open in that way and just lose all that comparison. And embrace the common humanity, I think, is one of the most fantastic things about sharing your artwork. And the other thing is usually when we finish a painting, like I finished this painting here a few days ago, started on the next one behind it. After this is completely dry in about a week or so, I'll varnish it. But the artwork doesn't end there. You know, I've spent, I think, 6 days on that painting. I'll probably spend a lot more time on this painting. I've spent days and days and days on other paintings, big paintings. And that creativity doesn't end after varnishing. And many local friends here, thank you, Kristen and Kim and everyone else, are teaching me how to continue that creative process through the sharing of my artwork, how it can go into a gallery and be hung in a creative way, and be shown in a creative way. It can continue that creativity, that narrative on the particular painting that you're working on can continue into how you share it. You spent all this time and effort. This is what has resonated with me once. I think I heard Tyler, the creator, talk about this. You spent all this time and effort on the paintings for them to just sit in your garage and not show anything. Like that was the end of it. That's a travesty. Yeah. If you love it that much, if you loved how much you were working on it and all the time and effort, put it out there, show people, care enough about your artwork to take it to that next level. Another really important point about sharing your artwork, take it to that next level. And I want to quickly talk about, like, you know, TLDW here, just real quick going through this, the levels of sharing that I've gone through. And we know this super simple and easy. Take a photo of your artwork on your phone, put it on your socials, you know, Instagram, Facebook, Kara, Blue Sky. Super quick and easy to do that. Don't even have to add anything to it. Just upload it and put it out there. The next level, create your own website, which is so important today. Have your own presence that you own on the internet. That is like mine, chrisbevan.com, yourname.com. It's out there. Set aside like your specific space, your home on the internet somewhere. Next level after that, sell your work on your website. And then the next level after that, local galleries, local events, things like this, where you actually have to get out in person to talk to people and find that connection with your local community. And that's where it gets more fulfilling. Then after that, you know, you're sharing your artwork all over the world. There's a ton of opportunities online. There's a ton of opportunities locally. You just have to really search them out and find them. And then my next level of sharing is getting better at presentation. I have this tendency with myself, and you may be similar in this, to denigrate my artwork way too much. And I need to try and remove that from my kind of repertoire when I'm sharing my artwork. Someone says, "Oh, I love this. This is fantastic." And what do? Instead of saying thank you, I start telling them about how bad it is in certain ways. I need to love my artwork a little bit more, share it a little bit better, get better with that creativity as I show it and share it. And take it to the next level. So that's the things we're going to be talking about today. Let's get into the stream and into my painting for today. Hopefully the TLDW was great. And hello again, Michael. Yeah. I like to do a too long didn't watch at the very beginning of each of these streams because, yes, they go long. I go into tangents. I love answering questions. So please, please, please sidetrack me into other questions. This is day 3 on this painting. Actually, it's day 2 to be exact. The first day I was doing some color study stuff for Omar that was on the stream. And then yesterday was the initial paint application. I didn't do any drawing, any like traditional drawing with like graphite or anything. Just went straight to paint. This is 100-pound water or 140-pound watercolor paper with 2 coats of PVA size on the front, 1 coat on the back to straighten that paper out. And I'm going to continue on with it today. And we'll be talking a lot about sharing our artwork and the importance of sharing our artwork and figuring out how we can do that in a way that is fulfilling to us and not so scary. Because you know what? It isn't so scary. After you do it a few times, it gets a little less scary. I would say that the majority of the time, it's not scary, but I still continually worry or think, oh, is that even worth sharing that piece of artwork? You know, maybe and I still have a bunch of old paintings that I did years and years ago that I still share. Trying to get rid of them, honestly, trying to sell those guys. There's going to be someone that comes around and loves whatever you don't like. It's going to be awesome. Michael, you're painting right now, and the reason is you, Chris. Oh, fantastic. I'm inspiring. Oh, thank you so much. That means a ton to me, man. That's why I'm here, you know, and speaking of connection, this is another way I enjoy this kind of connection on streams rather than making a video and it being kind of like this obtuse thing where I give information, but I can't receive. I can't get that connection. And a person yesterday said the same thing because I was talking to them about my daily practice, and that got them motivated to get back into their artwork. So fantastic. Oh, watercolor paper and gesso, Michael. Wonderful. Wonderful. Perfect place to start. Perfect place to start. Inexpensive, all about getting right to it, figuring out, you know, who we are within this artistry, this art stuff that we do. And, you know, I was very surprised when we were doing this color study the other day, and this is copy paper. Like copy paper that I got at the grocery store that's in my printer. And I painted this like copy of a Frazetta, a terrible copy of a Frazetta. We were focusing on color more than anything. And it was really interesting just feeling what this paper was like. It did soak up a lot of the paint, you know, but it could be one of those perfect, like very, very, very inexpensive things to just get paint on a surface somewhere, not worrying about the archival quality of it or how long it's going to last, but just getting to work, getting to the painting process, learning things and saying, yeah, this, you know, I'm going to remove all of the, like, pretentiousness and all the carefulness and all the worry about it existing beyond the process. And I tell you what, that's liberating. If you're just painting just to paint, just getting deep in the process and getting better about it, like everything else will follow that. You'll get better. You'll eventually share your work. You'll eventually get into galleries and things like that, but it starts with doing the work. So awesome for you, Michael. Fantastic. You're inspiring me when you say that to keep doing this and helping people, because I'm finding really true fulfillment in sharing my work simply and easily, and also sharing my process here on these streams as well. Definitely. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about this painting before I get started into it. So yesterday, well, the general idea of this painting is more about expressiveness, more about trying to find how to find that balance between accuracy within drawing and very expressive mark making, like this previous painting I did. This was the one before. I really enjoyed this whole process, had a lot of fun with just moving through all these little small moments. And I want to do the same thing in this painting. So establishing the general idea, it's what we've done yesterday. Now what I think I would like to do, we're going to focus on, is really get here into our focal area, right where this knife is. Like, I think that's the hilt of a knife, and then this is called maybe the tang, Tang. I am not certain. Maybe that's only on swords. I could be wrong. But starting right there, there's this like wonderful highlight on it. And that's where I'm going to begin the process of focusing on finishing strokes with this painting, really diving into very little specific moments. And then it's going to be like a puzzle piece. And I'm going to work out from there, just puzzle piece it all from there. Hey, Slipknot, what's up? Welcome. Yeah, happy 4th of July. Independence Day. It's going to be fun. Well, I don't do the fireworks thing. I live in Pueblo, and there's a town next to me that just burnt down. Big town, Beulah. Lots of people out of homes and businesses. And I think it was started because a big fire started because of fireworks. So that's, if we celebrate, you got to be careful, people, with all that. Take all the precautions you can, 100%. Keep everybody safe. Have a great time. And that'll be good. Okay, so we're going to start there and move our way out. And then every now and then I'll jump back into the importance of sharing your work, but please ask questions as I move through this. I'm going to start with the darker shadow under these knuckles here, I think. And this is still wet. It's great. There's a lot of white that I mixed in with most of the paint here. I tested a few places already. And even the very thin areas are still wet. It's great. Yeah, go easy on the fireworks, definitely. We can still have fun. Don't have to blow up everything and still have a good time. It doesn't have to be too crazy. Okay. The one thing I also want to do within this is I like the last painting, I was thinking about saturation a lot, about temperature and saturation. So warm or cool, and keeping things a little bit more saturated in a lot of places, especially around my focal point, keeping that saturated. But that's a little too far. Alizarin crimson and white, poof, super reddish purple kind of thing. It's crazy, but that's pretty saturated. Let's see. So expressive work. I'm going to try and not get too crazy with my drawing, not focus on it too much. Like I said, finding that balance between expressive mark making while keeping the drawing close enough so it doesn't look odd. Like it's not distracting in some way. Like, oh, that's a weirdly formed hand. I could get much more neutral there. And let's go into a bluer tone. Neutralize the heck out of it. A little bit more yellow ochre. The best way to neutralize some colors is to go across the color wheel to its opposite, its complementary, and neutralize that way. So that's why I did that one. You get really like a different gray when you do that. You can focus on it in different ways. It's almost like a chromatic black, where you don't get a very gray black, but it's like a black that's mixed up of all these intense colors that are just really dark. Adds a bunch more interest. And see, as soon as I add this like very dark area, since, this is, on the nose a little bit, but like we don't look at anything else but that dark value because it's so different from everything else. And usually what I do on these paintings is I'll set like here's your value scale here, right? Right now the entirety of the value scale is like maybe lives within these first 4 values, and that's it. White all the way to number 4. And then I just added in something down here, 6 or 7. And then, that difference, that incongruence attracts a lot of attention. But sometimes I'll determine in a painting, hey, I want to compress it all within here. And for the most part on my paintings, I like to avoid the blackest black. Because maybe you can see this. I don't know if you can see it. Not only is there a bunch of glare when you go black, like as black as you can get, but dust and cat hair and everything else gets stuck on black and the black paint. And it's just, that's all you see is that texture of everything that's in the air around us. You really understand how there's so many particles flying around us all the time. Okay, so I'm going to move through this. So I'm finding true fulfillment and really sharing my work. And it's not about I'm not finding that fulfillment like in sales, you know. Like we were talking about on a stream, man, like a week ago or so. Like this is a profession that we pick, especially today, you know, in our current environment where it's not based on like this monetary concern. Like people don't go into being, you know, full-time artists to make a lot of money. Like they go into it to make enough money, and mainly because it's a love, it's a passion, and it's, you know, a dream to be able to do it full time, right? As much as we can, or whatever that means for us. But it's not one of those things where we're like, you know what? I definitely want to get that Ferrari and that third home and all this other stuff. You know, artists, you know, there's a few of them out there that have done that, but it's very, very difficult. We specifically, hey, Krista, welcome. We specifically choose this for the love of it, right? And it's a hard route. It is, we're choosing the hard route. We're choosing to take the harder route within this. We could go into a local job like our parents went into, or the same business or something like that, and we'd be safe. We'd make more money, and that's possible too. You know, if you have a job where you can, you know, make enough money on the side, and then that allow that to support your artwork. I did that for years and years. That's also a viable option. But I'm finding like the fulfillment more within, you know, sharing my artwork and focusing on the connection of it rather than the making of the money. Because I decided, especially for the subject matter that I do, which is figurative work, it's a lot harder to sell figurative work. A lot more people are willing to hang landscapes and still life rather than figurative work. So I'm like, yep, it's going to be a lot harder for me, but guess what? Like, I can't do anything else. There's so much love there that I can't do anything else. It's what I need to do to feel fulfilled. Yeah. And that's kind of like my process within that. So we take the harder route intentionally for other reasons. Clips by Matt. Hey, I just found and subscribed to your channel. Thank you so much. Appreciate that, Matt. Appreciate the support. Yeah, I just watched 2 of your videos, including Safe Non-Toxic Oil Painting, 6 Tips for Your Health. Excellent video. Thank you. Yeah, I did that a while ago. Things have changed since then. I'm really painting differently now with a lot of different stuff. So if you have any questions about that, I could go on forever about painting without solvents. Water mixable oil, maybe you jumped into that one too. I did a whole like comprehensive guide on that. That's another option. Oh, good. Like serendipity. You found me live. Okay, well, I'm here to answer questions. And we're going to talk about sharing your work as I'm doing it while I'm working on a painting. Multitasking artist. That's me. Yay. Hopefully the painting turns out okay. You know, that is one thing with sharing these streams is it's a reduction in focus. I was just talking with my best friend, another artist who's on YouTube, Josh Johnson, not the comedian. And I'm talking to him about how I like to stream, which is like this constant like mishmash of just verbalizing everything that I'm doing. And he's like, yeah, some of us can't do that, man. He's like, if I try to talk while I'm drawing and painting, like, you know, it's not going to happen. But I think, you know, I've done this so often now, and I usually talk to myself too while I'm painting, you know, don't judge me. But I talk so often that I feel like I can do both at the same time. Are my paintings better when I'm focusing and not talking or doing anything else? Yeah, for some instances, yes, they are. And I'm working on a hand, notoriously difficult. Thinking about this drawing on this hand as well. Slipknot says, I remember watching Avatar in IMAX and I could see little dust particles that the CGI artists added to the forest. It really helped to sell Pandora as a realistic planet. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Like some of the best CGI ever in those movies. It's crazy. Crazy cool. I'm guessing that you thought of that when I was talking about painting oils and using black, how much dust it collects. And if you ever have like a shaft of sunlight coming through your window in your house, and there's like all these dust particles flying everywhere, and you're like, I never see that unless there's some kind of big light. I'm pretty sure my house is pretty clean. That's just humans, right? I heard once that all the dust in your bedroom is comprised mostly of dead skin cells. A little gross. Maybe true. Have no idea. Don't quote me. Oh, good evening. Slipknot, you say good evening. It's like noon for me. I wonder where you're at. In the UK, maybe? Could be. It would be late there. Okay. So I did this, and the reason why I'm talking about sharing my artwork, because life, and I'm sharing my life, things that are going on. There is this pop-up art show that happened locally that Amy put on here locally. Thank you, Amy, for that. And it was, it didn't have that official quality to it. It wasn't like, okay, we'll make sure that you submit your W-9 so we can give you a 1099 at the end of the year, and then please sign this waiver, and here's this contract. And it didn't get into all that stuff. It was more like a block party in a warehouse that was very warm, by the way. Oh, Great Britain. No. Okay. 1857. Oh, what is that? So 7 p.m. for you, just about. But it was it was well put together. They had a DJ, they had everything, but it got rid of a lot of the pretentiousness of selling things and like, it has to be this or it has to be that. And it was a lot of fun. It was more about connection with the community and other people. And it was on First Friday, and I'm pretty sure, and most towns around the world, they do this because it's everywhere here. We've had something like this in almost every town that I've lived in, like a first Thursday or first Wednesday, first Friday, first Saturday of the month, something like that, where all the galleries open up. And usually in towns where there's galleries close to each other, people just walk from gallery to gallery to gallery, just viewing the artwork, and they'll have food and drinks at every gallery that you can partake in. And it was the same for this pop-up show. It was part of First Friday celebration, and just a lot of fun, meeting a lot of people, talking to a lot of people. My voice is a little raspy today because the music was not too loud. It was actually good volume, but still I had to speak over the music. So I'm a little bit raspy today. That could be better. I need to go more into my cadmium red for some of these mixtures and warmer red. I'm getting into too many purples, I think, especially for hands, Caucasian hands. We get a little bit more warm. Yeah, within those colors. And where did that hair come from? Oh my goodness. Oh well. Yeah, so super fun, super fun. And I know when we talk about this, when we talk about showing our work, a lot of people dislike it. They're like, oh, I don't want to get into all that, And I remember years ago, I had this like one-man show in Florida with all my work because I was painting a lot at the time. And something about it was just like overly pretentious, overly like salesman-like. I did not like it at all. And that was one thing that led me to just not doing artwork for like 5 years in a row and really losing a lot of the skill that I had. So I just had really like this negative vibe about it. And it was probably me because I was like 20 years ago. I was very naive, much less intelligent than I am now, although I'm not very intelligent still, but we grow, right? But today I have a very different perspective on sharing my work, especially being in Pueblo, which has a very wonderful art scene. Little small town, like a big town feel, but a wonderful art scene. Wonderful art scene. And it's very helpful because everybody is so nice to artists, so many nice artists around here. And it's motivating. You talk to other artists and you see what they do and you just want to paint more. Slipknot says, yeah, exactly. The dust particles you mentioned are a small detail that needs to be added to make a lifelike environment. Yep. I wish it felt like that with my paintings that got too much dust in them. Like when you want this very smooth, glossy black background, and yet there's all this dust kind of interrupting that, doesn't really help. Kind of doesn't work with what you want. Okay. I think the one thing that this needs right here, going back to the painting, back and forth, multitasking here. One thing that this needs, and I talk about this compositional element a lot, moving composition into like our fundamentals, value, color, saturation, contrast, all this kind of stuff affects composition. And so because this is my focal point, the highest contrast I want there, and I'll show you what I mean. So we have the tang, I think it's called, and then the hilt here. But there's this shadow on a black hilt, I believe. It's the darkest thing in the painting. And I want to make that not all the way to black, but I want this to be the darkest part in the painting. And I want white to be right next to it. Kind of like a yin-yang symbol, white and black right next to each other. That attracts a lot of attention. It's like a zebra, right? Black and white right next to each other. High contrast. If you want to attract attention to a certain part in your painting, think about that super high contrast in that area. And then make everything else low contrast. Because everything's relative on your painting. We were talking about muddy colors the other day, and what muddy actually means. But there's no bad color. It's only based in the relationship of everything else on your painting. So a quote unquote muddy color could seem more saturated if it's on black and gray, right? It just depends on what it's next to. So if I'm doing high contrast in my focal point, low contrast everywhere else, or less contrast everywhere else, will kind of prop that high contrast up. So I'm planning the painting, the composition. I'm planning to try and affect where my audience is going to be looking on this painting. Really kind of direct. We're a director of our own painting movie, right? Just like Avatar. And they deal with composition all the time. Like, this is the important part of this scene. This is where I want you to look. I'm going to block it out this way through these kind of different movements through the scene. And the best directors that do it really well get all the views, right? I talked with someone long ago about small details you need to be mindful of to create realistic art. One example is when you see the upper eyelid casting a shadow on the iris of the eye. Most people miss it. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because there's a shelf there. There's a thickness to an eyelid that's amazing. Like if you zoom in on, just beautiful eyes, right? And you see the thickness of the top and the bottom of the eyelid. A lot of times you'll see light catching on the bottom eyelid, right? Like the thickness of that eyelid will catch some light to it. Those little details, man, it sells it. It does sell it. Speaking of selling and sharing your work, we can get back to that. If you dislike and you're like, I'm not going to sell my work. I hate the whole process of it. I don't like ads. I don't even want to do that. focus on the connection. How can you make connections more than yelling and screaming at people? One of the books I'm reading right now, again, I've read it multiple times. Really like this book, Your Music and People by Derek Sivers. It's a lot of it's about musicians. So if you're a musician, I would definitely suggest you buy this book. It's fantastic. But there's a lot of analogies within music that can be translated to the visual creative arts that we do, painting, drawing, whatever you're doing. So there's a lot of connection between the two. There's some analogous kind of stuff that happens there. And I have to remember as I'm doing this, as I'm moving through this painting, that I'm looking for interesting brushwork. Like that's number one. If I was rating things through this painting, interesting brushwork, every single brush stroke I put down, is that interesting paint first? That's what I want to ask. And then accuracy within the drawing after that. So all these little moments, like those little bits that we're talking about, those little pieces of detail, it can be done in, if you zoom in on a painting, you have these little abstract kind of squares. All you see is that little square and it turns into abstraction. It's fantastic. It's nothing but paint at that point, but it's beautiful. And we can I've been liking lately moving through these paintings and thinking about those different moments and how can I make that interesting? And it's challenging. I mean, within that, you're thinking about, okay, well, I'm in the shadow here. I want to keep my shadows much more transparent, a bit more neutralized, closer to gray than a lot of the parts of the painting. So soft as well, maybe still a bit more saturated in some areas when the one thing we know about light that we see a lot of times, when you move further into the shadow, it'll get a little bit more saturated, right? Really looking at the photograph and all of the translation that the photograph does with the object that we're taking a picture of, and kind of enjoying that translation, because a lot of it, you'll get in some weird saturated greens or blues or oranges or something that maybe you wouldn't see in real life, or you would, but little artifacts in the pixels, and saying, that's pretty interesting. How can I push that a little bit further? But just having fun with those little bits. I like to call this, the way I'm painting right now, just starting here and moving my way out, like puzzle pieces. You're moving through the puzzle of the painting, a little bit at a time. It's good for a meditative type of painting where you're just I'm going to focus on this little bit and then connect the next little bit to it and the next little bit to that, and focusing on finishing strokes throughout. If you can put it down once and leave it, always looks a bit more interesting in some ways. Richard Schmid, SCHMID, would work this way all the time. Just start detailed and then kind of move out from there. I needed to have yesterday's session where I established the majority of what this painting was going to look like, and the location of everything. But after that's established, I feel okay, I can kind of let go of that. I can kind of be get deeper into this idea of just this puzzle piece and all these little pieces, because I feel that what I've already set into motion, all these bigger ideas, will hold together once I get into the details of everything. And not details in the sense of that I'm trying to repeat the photo exactly, but little moments that are interesting, that could be little abstract shapes in some way. And then also think about how much of this can I leave? That initial paint that I put down, how much can I leave and have it still look really amazing? Another thing I'm going to do is titanium white and just a tiny bit of yellow. It's the most brightest kind of yellow I can get. Not the most saturated, because the most saturated is running out of the tube. As soon as I add white to it, it's going to neutralize it a little bit. But I like to put this on the edge. Oof, even more yellow. I can go further, like take it further. More yellow, like right on the edges of where there's a highlight, like the hilt of this. I did that wrong. I got a little bit too much of a different color paint in there, but right on the hilt of this knife where it's metal, and so it's very reflective, very bright, got a crazy highlight. I'm going to put some yellow on either side of it to kind of indicate the turn in that form. But mostly I'm doing that because it attracts more attention. It's kind of like a bit of glow that happens. But of course, everything's relative. Like there's so much brightness around this right now. I haven't got deep into the shadow areas of everything else. There's so much brightness around this area, that it doesn't stand out that much. It's kind of there, kind of see it, but as soon as I establish some of the shadows and bluer areas around there, it'll pop out even further, even more. And these are the areas where I have like these super highlights where I want to keep the white of the paper. Like that's intentional. When I established, you can see like the very soft, very thin paint I put down yesterday is intentional, that I'm leaving a lot of these areas white, like the highlights. I want that ability to scrape back to the white paper. Definitely. Okay, and I do like this black with a little bit of yellow ochre that I see on this knife here. And it goes into green a little bit more green. Not that dark though. Lighten it up. I think this is what they call the tang. But maybe it'll be in swords. I'm not sure. I'm making up stuff right now. I don't know anything about swords or knives. As a pacifist, I don't own anything like that. But I like the color. I really like the color. Now, one of the things that I think we all hear, I know that we all have this connection, this common humanity, because there's so many amazing artists that I've heard speak or watched on YouTube, or heard comments from the artists here that are so good, and we all say the same thing. I say the same thing. I'm not good enough. I can't share my work. I'm not good enough. There's this comparative that we kind of jump into. I need to wait to share my artwork when it's as good as X, right? But the thing to focus on there is like, hey, Dennis, happy 4th. Thank you for showing up. The thing to focus on there is that we all feel this. Even the best artists out there are like, I don't know. Man, I'm not that good. I'm not that good. I love hearing people like Nicholas Uribe, who I look up to, and he's like, oh, my drawing's terrible. And I'm like, dude, I wish I could draw half as good as you. And it's so funny how we have this kind of different look into our own world. So understand that that's part of everyone. Like I feel the same way. Like even that pop-up art show last night that I went to, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not gonna show these paintings. A few of them I didn't show. It's not good enough. And I keep running into that, keep having to reminding myself, there's so many times when I've said this painting isn't going to sell, and it's the first thing that sells, and vice versa. Like there's so many times I've said, this is one of my best paintings ever. I love it so much. It's going to fly off of my website in an instant. And it's still there. Months and months, years go by. No one wants to buy it. And I'm like, what? This doesn't make sense. So that's happened so many times that I've just said, you know what? It doesn't matter. You just show it to enough people. There's more than 8 billion people on the planet. If you showed your artwork to everyone, everything would be sold. There's a person for everything out there. They just need to come by and see it. A person for everything you do. And if that fails, your mom will love it. Right? They'll always buy it. And all galleries and museums, even the biggest, most prestigious museums on the planet that are out there, they're full of subjectively bad art and subjectively good art. Because it's all subjective. Your subjectivity is going to be a lot more critical about your artwork than anyone else. Like it should. You should be a bit more critical. That's how we grow. Right? When we look at artists that are a bit too, what's the word for it? They think that everything that they do is the best. There's not many of them out there. Us artists were very empathetic, modest kind of people, I think, the majority of us. But when people have kind of a big head, it's a little bit negative for a lot of us. Yeah. But that's few and far between. I think most artists are much more critical about our own work. I don't know. What do you guys think? Yeah, you can always count on Mom. Definitely. Definitely. My mother still has just like paintings all in her house, which is fantastic. It's wonderful. Can always count on Mom to make me feel well. Yeah, there's always someone out there who love it. I'm reading through my notes. Yeah, remove comparison with others and be yourself. That's probably that is so important. And it always begins, we begin our art career, we're looking at a painting, and usually that's how it starts. We'll look at something visually when we're young. That's how it started for me. And then after that, like the very first thing that pops in your head was like me, 5 years old. I was like, I want to repeat that. Like, so interesting. Like some people look at it and they go, that's cool, and they move on. But then others, like you and me, we look at something, we go, oh, that is so amazing. I want to be able to do that. Like with musicians, with sports, for us, it was art, right? And so when we start out that way, I had to remember where I was. When we start out that way, everything is kind of referential. We're a reflection of what we love because we loved it, and that's what kind of was the spark. And so what we're trying to do is kind of repeat that feeling in our own work that we do. And that's wonderful. Like we're going to start out that way. Some of us, not all of us, of course, we are on a different journey. I started out that way, being very just copying from photos, And then eventually we begin to break away from it. We begin to develop this idea of like who we are, what we like, what we dislike, how we want our artwork to look, how it wants to be influenced rather than directly referencing another photo or piece of artwork from someone else. Oof, I did not do that right. I don't like that little stroke. But then eventually move away from it. And I think, this is part of, my current growth right now. Probably the current growth that I've had for the past 10 years is doing the thing, trying to figure out how to do the thing well. Oil painting, drawing, right? But then also within the same moment, who am I within this? Who do I want to be? What do I want to say? How can I differentiate myself from the artists that I love, like influence yet more of me? And when we focus more on that, when we're focusing more on, wow, I really love that painting by that person, or you're scrolling through your social media and, you're very careful with that because it can be detrimental to your creative process because you see so much amazing stuff. You can feel like it's just overwhelming. So we have to be careful with that. But we can look at it and go, that's beautiful and fantastic, and then get motivated to do our own thing through that. But say, how can I take what I like from them and then learn how I can make that comparison between what I'm loving and a connection to myself, my own sensibilities, my own life, my own history. How can that be part of it as well, right? And it's not easy. Like, there's no one answer to that. There's as many answers as there are people searching for it. So removing that comparison, as in I'm not as good as them, but loving what they're doing and saying, okay, I see you. I see how amazing you are. Let's see what I can do. You know, how can I do that, but also make it my own? And I think that is a very healthy way of looking at it. So there's some comparison there, but it's more like, you know, letting them be them and then letting you be you. I always tell people, I'm like, if you like, you love Maduerta, you love Frazetta, you love, oh crap, I'm trying to think. I'm going through comic book artists. If you haven't, what's the artist that did Spawn? Oh my gosh. Can't believe I forgot. It's McFarlane. You love McFarlane. You love all of these these comic book artists. And that's fantastic. But there's already been a McFarlane. There's already been a Frazetta, right? Use what they're telling you in their paintings. Like, definitely do copies of their work to understand, you know, how they moved through these fundamentals of artwork in their way, but then figure out your way. But we don't want to be a copy of them. We don't want to be another Frazetta. There is a Frazetta. There was a Frazetta. Now I want more of you in this world. That's what we want. We want to see your interpretation of this planet, this humanity, this history that we have. It's like viz dev artists, visual development artists within video games and CGI for movies and things like that. And I've heard this from big names that have been in that hemisphere. They look for artists that have their own voice more than anything else. Yeah, there's a lot of artists that need to be there, that need to repeat a voice that the art director says, here, do this, you know. But for the most part, they also want artists that could bring something, you know, new and different, right? And be careful with that word, new and different. Those words, new and different. The only way that I feel that you can be new and different is to be ultimately and utterly yourself, because that's the only thing that can be new and different, is how you've moved through your experiences in life, and then showing that. You know, people always say painting's been done. Everything in painting has been done, right? And for the most part, they're right. Honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. It's like, yeah, I mean, we've gone from one end of the spectrum to the other in so many ways. And it's like, oh, painting's dead. There's nothing new to do with it. But then at the same time, I disagree. I'm like, you know, there's Michael and Dennis and Doobie the cat on here, and all kinds of other artists that show up. Omar, everyone that's on here. Krista, you have your own sensibilities and experiences. And as long as you lean on that, as long as you continue to look inwards and think about what you like and what you hate, and like the specifics within that, and like lean heavily on who you are, that's new and different. It's very subtle, but it's more you than anyone else. And that's the only way we can get new and different, is from internal. Wow, that was a bit of a tangent. It started with, but I'm not good enough to share my artwork. We're all learning. We're all getting better, and we're sharing as we're learning and getting better. Dennis says, I can't say how many times looking through great paintings for inspiration has deterred me from actually painting. Yes, definitely. What's up, Doobie? What's up? Welcome, guys. Yeah, I know it can be detrimental. Like, you see these amazing artists and you're like, I'm not near good enough. Not near good enough. No matter how good you are, like, maybe this could be negative. You could take this negative. I take it more in a positive way. But when we look at like, oh, I'm not as good as them yet. You know, you can put that yet word at the end of it, which is really important. You know, there's positivity within that. There's growth. There's, you can work towards it. But if you just say I'm not good, it's like you're done. There's no positives. There's no moving from that. There's no hope. But if you go, I'm not good enough yet, you got positivity moving forward. But when we look and begin to compare ourselves with like other artists or even generated stuff, you know, we're like, oh, I suck so hard. You know, I'm nowhere near as good as they are. There's always going to be someone better, subjective, always subjective, good, subjective, bad, subjective. But there's always going to be that next level. I mean, this whole game is on a horizon. It's you go 2 miles and the horizon moves 2 miles. And that's what I love about it. It's infinite possibilities within that, right? It's not about, imagine this, like we're all on this plane, right? And we're all looking towards the horizon and we're in a line. Okay, we're all looking out towards the horizon. You look left and there's about 1 million artists to your left, and you look right and there's 1 million artists out to your right as well. And we are all faced towards the horizon on this path. And we're just walking towards the horizon. We're not getting in each other's way, but we're on everybody's own pathway. It isn't like Rembrandt is ahead of us on a single file line and I need to get past all these other artists to try and make it to Rembrandt. No, we're all in our own line, our own journey. And we're just all sharing this possibility, this idea, you know, socializing this idea that, hey, I'm learning and I'm trying to figure out who I am with this, trying to get better. Exactly what I'm doing on this stream. You know, I'm gonna make some really bad paintings on this stream. I already have. I'm gonna make some really good paintings. But just sharing this idea like, hey, you know, look at the person next to you, wave and say, hey, awesome, you're on the same pathway. This is fantastic. Look at this journey. Look what I found. You know, isn't this cool? Look what that person found and what they did. Oh, that's cool too. Yeah, celebrate it. Love what's out there. Use it for that motivation, right? Oh, I can do that. I can do that eventually. I can get something close to it, but better because it'll be mine. It'll be from me. It'll have my sensibilities to it, even though I won't see it. Like sometimes I look at my paintings and I'm like, I can't even tell. Like it's me. Like, you know, so I can look at artists all day long and I'm like, oh, that's Bierstadt. That's Rubens. That's Rembrandt. That's Sorolla. That's Sargent. That's Anne Gale. That's this person. Like there's that DNA of all of their artwork that's in their paintings. But dude, I can never see that in my own work, which is weird. Like, I'm like, is this, like, how do you know it's mine? Because I don't see it. I really don't see it. Go away. Okay. Sorry. Got a beep and had to ban a bot. Okay. I don't know why the fear of failure is so powerful. Like you said, there's always someone better anyway. Yeah, and that, like you have to be careful with that because it could be on a negative thing. You know, you could take that as like, this is an endless journey, and I'm never gonna get to Rembrandt because, you know, that's tough because 400 years ago he painted those paintings, and everybody is like, I wish I could paint as good as Rembrandt. For 400 years we've been trying. Hasn't got there yet. So we could take that as negative, or we can go, you know what? Rembrandt did his thing. We don't want another Rembrandt. We want another Chris Brandt, Dennis Brandt, Michael Brandt, Barefoot Bob Brandt. Hey, welcome, Barefoot Bob. You know, let's get away from that comparison and say, no. Look, I'm going to get super motivated by this person, what they did, learn a little bit about them, and then find my own way through this journey, this interesting, and then I'm going to share it, because we're talking about sharing our work. Fear of failure. Yeah, it's another reason why I paint small and I use inexpensive materials. Because, if you're like, oh, this painting is going to cost me $600 to make, it better be good. Or $1,000 to make, it better be good. So I remove that, and then iterative, small. I do lots of paintings. So if I fail at this painting, I got a next one tomorrow I'm going to start on. It's all good. And loving the failure too. We have this fear of failure, yet it's the one thing. That failure where you screw up and you do a bad drawing, or, you have to do 100 or 1,000 really bad looking heads to come out with a really good looking head, because all of that bad, quote unquote, failure that we have is the journey of learning. The best way to learn how to paint better is to fail fast, fail forward, fail often. Love it, and go, oh man, I screwed up on that one. But it's yelling at me how I can do better next time. That's what our failures are about. Gotta love that. Laugh it off. Say, okay, boy, look at that terrible hand that I painted or something. Look how awful that is. What can I learn from that? How can I love that and do something different the next time? Yeah, Michael already said it. Good job, Michael. I didn't even read that. And I was talking about it. So we're on the same wavelength there. Thanks, Michael. And that's the quickest way to learn. And there you go, Dennis. My goodness, I just read ahead. You guys are right here. You're in my brain already. Brains are together. Welcome, Barefoot Bob. Just exploring each pigment is a rabbit hole to me as a beginner painter who always drew and did photography. This is a fun perspective to be approaching it from. Definitely pigment. Painting sort of unifies them. And I don't know, you've probably seen this, and this is good for everyone that's here. It is a rabbit hole. I'm just going to warn you on this. What's it called? I'm looking for a website to give you guys. Someone's going to say it before I even get to it. Artistpigments.org. I'll share it in the chat. Give me a second in the live stream chat. There we go. It's a fantastic site. Sign up to look at it. But it gives you the exact pigment. Like when we're talking about pigment, it's like PBR7. Pigment, BR meaning brown, 7. And there's thousands of them. And then the combination of those that happen within all different types of paint, this goes into oil, watercolor, acrylic, everything. It'll bring in brands, and you can look at all of these pigments on a Munsell scale or several different scales. I won't get into it, but it is like, if you want to get into like the extreme science of these colors and everything, oof, my goodness. But kind of cool in a lot of ways. If you want to understand like where burnt umber is, specifically on a Munsell color wheel, it'll tell you, and it can give you information. Like, I had no idea that burnt umber was an orange. It's an orange. It is. It's 100% an orange. It's a very desaturated dark orange, but it's there. So that helps me out. It's like, oh, if I wanted a very, the most intense dark orange that I could get, and of course it's more desaturated than cadmium red and cadmium yellow connected, but burnt umber, orangey color, And then that dives into, well, if I add blue to it, it's going to neutralize it even more because you're adding a complementary, okay, rabbit hole, here we come. Yeah, color is infinite. It's fantastic. But at the same time, it could be the most simple thing on the planet. Like we can just say, you know what? I'm going to let all that go and just simplify it down into just a few component parts. I'm going to paint with a 4-color palette, red, yellow, blue, and do the Zorn thing and just revel in that for a few years. And you could take that for years and just continually learn forever. Heck, black and white. Black and white. The best pigments on the planet. That's all you need. A brush, some copy paper, and black and white. And you can go from the worst painting on the painter on the planet to the best painter on the planet with those meager materials. That's all you need. I just threw away something I was working on for 3 hours. Yeah. A story on that. This was years and years ago. I posted, like, we have to go through a lot of paintings. Our first few paintings that we're going to make and first few drawings are not going to look that great. We're learning. It's no different than if I said I'm going to be an NBA player in basketball, right? That's my goal. So what I'm going to do is just lace up my shoes and walk onto the court with the Lakers or the Bulls or something like that. I'm just going to go out there and do it. And I should be good at it. And everybody will look at you and go, "Are you crazy? You're crazy." No, you need to play like a few thousand games. You need to drill all of your fundamentals ad infinitum for years and years. Work your way up through the ranks. Fail a lot. How many free throw shots you have to fail to actually figure out, the perfect balance of everything within that alone and then everything else that's involved in it. And we're like, yeah, that's what you have to do. But as soon as like drawing and painting comes along, we're like, oh, why can't I do this right away? Like our brain thinks we should be able to just walk onto the court of art, NBA art, right? We should just be able to walk onto the court. I'm gonna put on my helmet and go out for American football with this like 300-pound guy, right? And I'm gonna yell at him right before he smashes me into the ground, and then I'm gonna question why aren't I good at this, right? No, art's the same way. How many? It reminds me of a commercial that Michael Jordan did. Where he was talking about how many losing like game shots that he had, how many games he lost, how many times he's failed throughout his career. And it was like hundreds of failures and terrible things, that there's no highlight reels for that, right? But all these times that he failed, but it was like, oh, well, that's how you get so good is through that. It's no different for art. If you think you're going to jump into this oil painting thing and make gallery ready, museum ready art and going to change the world with your first few paintings, no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Of course, I say that, and then you have artists like Maud, the naive artists out there that people just love, that naivete, where it's not about the skill, but about like the culture surrounding them, and there's the love for that as well. So, but for us that are representational and we're looking at Sorolla and Sargent and Ben Hope and Nicholas Uribe and all these other artists, you know, it's almost like people could look at you and go, how dare you undermine all of the work that they put in their work, and just to show up and say that you're going to do as well without all that work. How naive are you going to be? It's no difference than me being super naive by trying to walk onto that NBA court and thinking I'm going to be just as good as Michael Jordan, right? Not going to happen. And luck only gets you so far. Talent only gets you so far. Sorry to be like kind of negative on this. This is like the critical reality. Like there has to be a lot of hard work in it. And that's part of it. We can love that work as well. We can love that process. We don't have to hate it. We don't have to see it as this like arduous thing. It's not like math. It's a lot easier. You know, that's not what I'm not doing like math competitions or anything because the love isn't there. It's more like fierce hatred than anything else for math. That's why I'm not that. Anyway, Tangent City. Thank you, Chris. Very useful. You're welcome, Michael. Appreciate it. Hey, Omar. Welcome back. Hey, Chris, could you tell us the stroke you make and how to make for oil painting? I guess that's what I need to know for my studies. Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about because you were, you mentioned yesterday, I think it was yesterday or day before. It doesn't really matter. You mentioned before when we were looking at the differences between, you know, this painting that I made as, you know, test for color versus yours, I feel like you were talking about a more confident brushstroke, a brushstroke that understood like the thickness of paint and how to deal with that paint in a certain way, versus the artwork that you showed me. And honestly, I mean, to take it down to practical terms, well, before I get into that, there's no bad brushstroke. You know, for example, like this thin kind of crazy thing over here that I did, and that you see this thinness that happens all through this. It's just the underpainting, right? You know, it's intentionally thin. It's not supposed to be thick. So there's no bad brushstroke. But what I think that you're wanting is this more confident, like thicker kind of thing. And it depends on your paint, your surface, and the brush you're using. It depends on all three, okay, in order to get what you want. A lot of artists will go and they'll buy a tube of paint and they'll say, I hate this paint. Well, yeah, it probably doesn't work well with the brush you have or the surface you're working on. Some, like if you have M. Graham, which is notoriously kind of thinner, it has a lower viscosity. It's more fluid than other brand or manufacturers of oil paint. You know, if you're trying to use that on like super non-absorbent surface, it's going to be a lot harder. It's going to be a very different feel than if you used it on a very absorbent surface. So there's differences within that. So know that first, that I can throw these strokes down with all the experience that I have, right? But it's also some of the materials will affect that as well. I saw your brushes. You had some really good brushes in there. This is a synthetic brush. It's a very cheap synthetic brush. You don't need very expensive brushes, right? And the strokes that I put down on that Frazetta color study that I did the other day were fairly thick. So if I want to actually do it on this painting in a spot that makes sense for me during this painting. So I'm always, you know, there's a million things that I'm thinking about every time I'm putting a brush stroke down, right? Like its viscosity, its thickness, its saturation, its value, its edges, the drawing of it, the shape of it, all this kind of stuff. But for example, let me see where I want to focus on this, because I want a thicker brush stroke someplace, something with a little opacity. So right here, this shadow side of this thumb, like the meaty part of this thumb here, It's fairly blue. It's closer to blue than purple. So I want to push that a little bit. So let's get some ultramarine blue, a little bit of black to gray it out because I want to get closer to like a warmer gray. I could totally gray it out with like an orangey color, but I want to keep the mixture simple. That's probably a bit too... No, I didn't want that yellow. That would have been bad. Like a little bit more purple. There we go. That might be too dark. We'll see. But what I want to do, I'm going to bring more white into this mixture as well. Why do I do that? Because it'll force me to get more of the blue, more of the black, and maybe a little bit more of this alizarin crimson to mix thicker paint on my palette. There's a tendency, and now this is a glass palette too, that affects things. If I'm mixing on like the sketchbook paper, it's going to soak all the oil out of those mixtures. It's going to be harder to pick up, okay? So having a glass palette, super helpful, or palette paper. You can buy palette paper, is going to keep all this paint fresh longer. Okay. And it's still pretty thin. Let me get a big chunk. See, I still have this tendency, and we all do when we're first starting out with oil paint, to paint pretty thin. I see that with a lot of beginning artists, including myself. I still struggle with it. More gray. Use more paint. Synthetic brush, a bit more paint. This feels thick with paint. I know the feeling of this because I've done it so much. And when I put this stroke down, it's going to be very opaque and it's going to be definite. I'm not going to kind of, lack of a better terminology, chicken scratch it, like be very tentative with it. Be definite. See? Very thick. It has sharp edge on either side because it's a flat brush, softer at the beginning, softer at the end, but thicker paint, right? And that's part of it. Like the same brush, put just as much paint in it, and I could hit this a little bit lighter, just a small touch to it. Also start at the corner of this brush rather than keeping it flat to the paper. And I can lightly kind of scrape it. You see how it's sharper edge on the bottom, softer edge on the top, softer edge at the end. We're thinking about all these when we're painting, guys. It's not, I get this brush and this brush makes this stroke. Am I covering up? No. This stroke every single time. No. On the edge, we can make a line, line, line. You see, I'm getting more paint each time I'm doing this. I can start with the corner of the brush and do soft and hard, like a kind of stuttering stroke on that. Sometimes with more texture on the canvas, we get a different stroke. We can just lightly touch things. We don't even have to move the brush. We can rotate the brush, do a bunch of different things within this. We can intentionally describe the form that we're working with by rotating it down as we do things. Yeah. But all about the thickness of the paint, the softness of the brush, and the surface you're working on. Definitely. I want to keep that area pretty white, so I'm going to scrape that down. And to understand that oil paint can be forgiving in a lot of ways. You can move that around. You see how I scraped that off? Oh, it didn't work. Just scrape it off. Having some intentionality with every stroke you put down, getting used to that level of focus is also good. And I think I made that part of that hilt way too small. I need to increase the size of it. And I also missed some comments. Give me a second. Your commentary is important. Hopefully that helped, Omar. Let me know. Let me know if you need more clarity. You have any opinions on Rembrandt oil paints? Yes. Actually, this ultramarine blue is from Rembrandt. For a beginner, I'm very good for gesso. Yeah. There you go. Gesso and an acrylic black. Just paint with that. Oh, it's basically acrylic paint, black and white acrylic paint. Rembrandt is a good brand. It's a professional brand. I was just making a video for the Painter's Path about all oil paint brands, and Rembrandt was one of them. And I looked online recently, And I was surprised at how expensive Rembrandt was compared to like Michael Harding, M. Graham, Williamsburg, Old Holland, all of these other oil paint brands. Like these are the bigger name brands, at least in America, right? And Rembrandt, it's by Royal Talens. Royal Talens is the same company that makes Cobra water mixable oils. And it is a good paint, but would I say it's as good as Michael Harding or Williamsburg or Old Holland when it has pricing that's similar to that? No, I don't think it is. Why would I say that? When it comes out of the tube with a viscosity that's somewhat close to M. Graham, a bit lower viscosity, more fluid, right? And usually when you get that from paints, when you get like a lower viscosity from paints, it's very fluid, it's because there's a lot more oil than pigment, right? Like the ratio of pigment to oil is in the favor of the oil or the binder, whatever else is in that pigment. And usually it gets cheaper when you get that, okay? Usually, not always. So I've worked with some Michael Harding, back in the day, I worked with a lot of Rembrandt. And I find that Michael Harding, Williamsburg, Winsor & Newton to be of like this mid-range viscosity. You can kind of feel the pigment load in it a bit more than Rembrandt. My preference is I would prefer Rembrandt over M. Graham, but the pricing difference on that is tremendous. Like M. Graham is actually pretty inexpensive compared to all professional brands, which is pretty nice. But it's a bit too runny for me, a bit too fluid right out of the tube. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes down to, like I was talking about with Omar, with, making brushstrokes in different ways. We choose paints based on how they feel, and the feeling of those paints is based upon what brush we're using, the surface we're using it on, and the paint itself. And if we're using any mediums, affects all that as well. And then you bring your preference within that. So if you go get a super thick paint, like Gamblin. I used to use Gamblin for years. They changed something on their paints, and I started getting tubes that were so hard I couldn't even squeeze the paint out of the tubes. I remember titanium white that had dried chunks throughout the tube, and I'm like, are you kidding me? This is terrible. And they're just turned too thick for me. But I know a lot of people that love the thickness of the paint, but not for me, right? So if they're working with a very stiff brush on a very chunky surface, like, I don't know, barely primed cotton canvas, right? And a very stiff brush, like a hog's hair bristle brush, and some medium, they probably love Gamblin for that. But I like paint right out of the tube, so not for me. I need to get back to what I was talking about. Hopefully that's helpful. Let me know if you need more specifics within that, as far as my opinion is concerned. Because it is an opinion. It's definitely an opinion. Not liking where this is going. I need to scrape back to that white there. Keep that white. I'm confused why this color here that I mixed up, that lighter color on my palette, is looking so dark down here. And I know why. It's all about the relative stuff around it. So, need to come back to that. The relativity of art, of paint, of color. Scrape that off. I definitely agree. Dennis says, I was gifted some Rembrandt a couple years ago and they seem way too runny. I just haven't used them much yet. Yeah, use the crap out of them. Like I have a whole set of water mixable oils that I'm still going to use. You know, I got a whole set of M. Graham. Even though I complain about them, I'm still going to use the crap out of them. And the great thing about that connection between the surface, the brush, and the paint itself is we can affect that. So if they feel too runny, use a synthetic brush still, and then work on like raw oil paper or just raw paper, and it will thicken those up. Or you could do something like Nikolai Feshin did, amazing Russian artist back in the day. He would put them out, paints out on his palette and just let them sit for a couple days, let them thicken up. And he would paint with that because he loved how thick it was. Like he would have loved gambling. Do that. They'll dry out a little bit, thicken up some. Like, you know, a lot of these paints have been out here for days already. Can I still use them? Heck yeah. Just leave them out. It'll be all right. I mean, it's 100 degrees outside. I got central air, so it's not 100 degrees in here, but they'll still stay dry for a while. That's the great thing about oil paint. That's the major thing about oil paint. I mean, I would love to paint in gouache and stuff, but I love gouache. Like I've painted before, but I don't like having to use a stay wet palette and keeping the mixtures wet all the time and have to focus on that. It's a bit of a pain. Reactivating constantly, you know. Other people just love it though. Thanks, man, for your opinions. You're welcome. Thank you for asking. Oh, Marie's. You know, Omar is using that. That's the paint that Omar shared. I've never heard of Marie's before. You know, I don't think there's the only bad paint that I would suggest to stay away from is I was teaching a portrait painting class and some friends of mine, I said, bring just inexpensive paint. I didn't indicate whatsoever because I didn't think there was any bad paint. Well, they went to Walmart. And if you're not familiar with Walmart in the States, it's like it's a big name department store, and they sell groceries as well as lawnmowers and everything else and oil paint, right? And they bought a whole set of that paint for super cheap, which I need to go buy some and just really try it again because maybe it has its positives and that would be fun. But I was like, okay, this paint is bad. Like this is not good at all. Right. But if Marie's like art store brand, like even student art store brand, I think it'll be great. I think it'd be good paint. Perfect to start out with. I mean, most of the paints up here are student brand Winton from Winsor & Newton. Like I did a review on Phoenix Artist Oils, which is also out of China. Very inexpensive, comparable to Winsor & Newton Winton. Great paint. Fantastic. I could make beautiful paintings with those. Build that resilience with cheap materials. I love it. You know, what's better? To be the artist that needs, you know, to pay rent on a $2,000 studio, have a $6,000 easel, thousands of dollars worth of brushes, thousands of dollars worth of paint, to need all that, or to be an artist that is like, you know what? I got mud. I got rocks and some oil, and I got a stick with some hairs on the end of it. They both make beautiful paintings, right? I would rather be the guy with the rocks, because if he can paint, if they could paint something beautiful with just that minimal and cheap material, you know, if you give them something that is super expensive, that, you know, they could do maybe even better. But not to need that. Be like, oh, okay, even if I lose my job or, you know, something bad happens, I can just go out to Walmart and buy the cheap paint and still keep going. I loved that. I painted on that copy paper and it wasn't bad. I was like, this is awesome. You want to get better at artwork? Fill up a whole ream of copy paper with paintings. Throw them away afterwards and take a picture of them, share them. You know, we're talking about sharing, sort of. Take a picture of them and share them on your socials. That way you have like 90% of all the paintings that I've shared on my website, I do not have anymore. They either went into the garbage or they sold. I don't keep all that stuff. No, that's why I took pictures of it. So paint it cheap, paint a lot, keep images of it, keep track of it, which I think is really important, that way you can look back on it. But don't be so beholden to like the finished product so much. Because one day is a good painting, the next day it's like, what happened? It was a good painting, now it's terrible. Yeah, definitely good for practice. Or not, are good for amazing paintings. I've seen so many amazing artists. They pick up the Georgian paint. Georgian I haven't used, but these big tubes of super inexpensive student paint. Excuse me. Sorry, I had to reach for a new napkin. And they make these gorgeous paintings that are in museums, and it's like the cheapest paint possible. It's so fantastic. I've heard you can add egg yolk to thicken up a bit. Oh, no. No. Not oil paint. Egg tempera. Yeah, do not put egg in your oil paints. Maybe, I say that because I don't know. I know egg tempera. It's pigment and egg yolk, and that's it. And that paint will last for thousands of years. Can you believe that? Like a crushed up rock and the yolk of an egg, and you're good for 1,000 years. As long as it's on a good surface, you're good. But I have no idea about adding that to your paint. I know you can add a medium to thicken up your paint, definitely. But I wouldn't go with egg yolk. It seems, I'm not sure. Well, egg yolk will dry. I mean, it's part of egg temp. Dude, try it. Just try it and let me know what happens. I mean, Dennis, it's not my painting, so if it turns out horribly, at least I'll learn something. Right? Go for it, Dennis. We'll watch. We'll learn from your failures, just like I want everyone to learn from my failures on these paintings. Yeah, 100%. What temperature range do you keep your studio space? As warm as I can without dying, so that my bills aren't expensive. That's where it's at right now. Like I think I set the thermostat to like 76 throughout the day. But in this studio right now, it's hot because I got a beast of a computer putting out heat, and then I have a fan on me right now that helps out tremendously. But yeah, my studio is pretty warm. And if you're asking that in relation to like how fast my paintings dry, like on average, like depending on the surface I paint on, the paints I paint with, because that all changes it too. On average, maybe 2 weeks for a complete dry, ready for varnish, a retouch varnish or something like that. Definitely. And I've tried, like there's been paintings where I'm like, okay, I'm going to put this in front of a heater. And it hasn't really changed how fast they dry. The weirdest thing is like you can put paint in a freezer to save your palette if you need. And I know that saves your paint for a lot longer. I've heard that repeated actually I haven't tried it that often. But that's supposed to help keep your paint from drying for a while. But if you put heat on your painting to let it dry faster, I haven't seen a lot of results from that. Like it's like, oh, maybe a few hours faster, but not tremendously different. Yeah. I'm not liking any of this. No, none of that right there. I gotta focus a little bit more. I want to bring some orange in. I'm getting too purple everywhere. Purple. Just orange in here. And I'm trying to render hands. And everybody's like, well, yeah, that's, you're painting hands. Why aren't you trying to render hands? No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to render these hands. What I want to do is expressive brushwork, like to see a shape and just go, yeah, that's what I want to do. And then, through that farting noise, actually come out with something that's interesting. The technical idea of that, and I've described it in the most technical terms possible. Expressiveness over accuracy, basically. See, like, I really like this little orange brushstroke versus everything else. Everything else seems that I've done today seems way too measured, too exacting, too stilted. Yeah. Let's break it up. Let's get a bigger brush. Break it up. Egg is for different technique, I think. Tempera. Yeah, it's but it would be interesting if you heard that with egg. I've heard of all kinds of people doing all kinds of different stuff. I mean, Rembrandt would crush up glass and try all kinds of stuff in his paints, and they're still good today. So I say go for it, try it. You'll probably learn something. I've heard about people using soap while they're painting as solvent in their painting, and it worked fine. I've heard that. Like, whoa. Am I going to try that? No, not going to try that. But it sounds kind of cool. Because honestly, I don't worry too much about archival stuff, I worry more about the garbage men than whether it's archival or not. That's more like the future for a lot of my paintings rather than a museum. Okay, Bob says, have been enjoying the Gamblin 1980, although I'm trying the Winton titanium white at present, hearing it's better for paint breaks. It certainly is thick. Yeah, tell me, Bob, give me the difference between 1980 and Winton as far as viscosity. Which is thicker and which is thinner? Because I know the student brand of Gamblin, the 1980. And I definitely know Winton, and that's my favorite right now. Not only because I like that viscosity, but also because I can get opaque reds and yellows in Winton without heavy metals. Just going to a big brush right now and just putting in some shapes. You see this kind of really cool, like nothing but bristle stroke right there. You get that from a very dry brush, not a lot of paint on the end, and just lightly touching the surface. It's very distracting. I mean, it's not pushing things back. But it's okay. I'm going back to trying to focus on interest and fun rather than exactness and copy. Just to kind of, and I was talking about this on the last painting. It was more of like this breathing in and breathing out kind of thing, where I would breathe in and clench up for accuracy within the drawing and things like that, and then I would breathe out and go back to expressive and trying to find this balance with it all, and also loving this idea of putting something down like this. These are so exact within here, and I want to keep all that sharpness. It's a good I feel it's a good alternate to the softness of the body, as that's the focal point, so we get that variation in texture. Extreme variation in texture right there is just going to really bring that focal point in, like prominence a bit more. Definitely. I'm aware of tempera. I don't remember where I heard that. LOL. Look at one of my most favorite artists ever, Andrew Wyeth, Wyeth. Just, amazing. I've seen 2 retrospectives from him. It's Beautiful. Like paintings that would change my life right there. Just amazing. Andrew Wyeth. How did you say focus at the same point? How do you stay focused at the same point for so long, Chris? Focused at the same point. Oh, like on the painting? Like focused on the painting for so long? Yeah, explain that a little bit more, Michael. I recall Da Vinci added egg to oils as an experiment, which is why the Last Supper started falling right away. Yeah. Well, that, and I also heard, like, I don't know the exact history of it, but I also heard that, well, number one, it wasn't real fresco, where like he was too impatient. Like fresco, the plaster is wet and you paint into the wet plaster. He let it dry and, doesn't work really well. Then also it was like some kind of oil and water-based medium layered on top of each other. So that is like the biggest no-no. Like you can't put acrylic on top of oil, but you can put oil on top of acrylic. Like acrylic would not adhere to oil, but the vice versa is true. Right? Interesting how that is. Like the acrylic will peel off. How we can control the speed like you. Oh, I see. Yeah. Dennis says, I'm also not concerned with archival. I'll come back to that, Michael. Hey, George Cartoons, Cretu George. I just ordered some oils. I can't wait to get into this world. Oh, it's, you're right. That's fantastic. That's a good way of saying it. It's a big world. It's a big step out there. Great job, George. Hopefully you like it. Hopefully you don't hopefully you ordered just some inexpensive. You didn't like it, the most expensive out there, because there is a chance you could jump into it and you go, oh my God, this is awful. I hate it. But no, that's awesome. That's fantastic that you're going to try and get into this huge world of oil painting. That's wonderful. Yeah, that too with Leonardo da Vinci. So Michael asked, how can we control speed like you? Yeah, attention and focus. Like you said, focus on your previous point. That's a really good question. It's so hard to answer. It's so hard to answer that. Because there are moments when I'm painting, like certain paintings, where it goes off the rails. And almost, I think the majority of time, I can relate that failure to the focus that I have on the paintings. It's like I was saying at the beginning, close to the beginning of this stream, like while I'm talking and I'm like referencing, your comments and things like that, I am sacrificing focus on this painting. Like marketedly, my paintings are better when I'm not on my stream and I can focus 100% of all my attention on them. Yes. But I like this process a bit better. I like socializing this. But there's sometimes, even I'm here by myself and my brain is just mush. Those days when you didn't get a lot of sleep or whatever, and you just can't focus on anything and you don't know where to go, and you're not paying attention to what you're doing, and you're just kind of just throwing down brush strokes without thinking about where they're going or what you're doing. It comes down to understanding where you're at as far as your brain is concerned, right? Where, like, if you have the ability to bring in that focus, and it doesn't have to be super intense like me right now, although, this painting, it looks unfocused right now from what I've done so far today, but I'll bring it back in. It's okay. We can paint over it multiple times and work through it. And there's always an ugly stage of my painting, so I'm not worried about that. But understanding I didn't get a lot of sleep. The cat just puked on the carpet. I've had a fight with my significant other, all of this stuff. we'd like to think that it doesn't affect our painting, but oh my gosh, it does. It really does. So when you sit down to paint, or focus on what you're doing, right? Bring some like empathy to yourself. I'm always about this. So many artists don't talk about this. They don't know. They don't know to do it. I took a lot of classes and training to talk about this stuff. Okay. It's not just me. Read a lot of books about it. Okay. But that is so important. Like, where is your head at? Okay. And wherever it is, sometimes it's like, I do not have the focus today to get into what I'm working on. Like, this could be like the most important part of your painting, and you're out of focus. Like, your brain is just everywhere. Recognize that and work on an unimportant part of your painting to get some painting done, like the background. Spend a half an hour getting a nice background in. It's just simple, right? We focus on what you can do at that point, but understand, have a little bit of empathy for yourself. That's number one. Because if you don't have that, if your brain's not where it needs to be, it doesn't matter what else I tell you. It's not going to work. But make sure that everything you do to your painting, that, or at least get in the habit of it, because everything you do is not going to get there all the time. But get in this habit of, when I put down something, it has to have an effect to the painting. And you probably think, like, what do I mean by that? What do I mean by like some kind of effect? Because if I put a brushstroke down, of course it's going to affect your painting. But is it taking you closer to your narrative, what you want to say, what you want to do, or is it taking you further away from it? And then that gets back to the very beginning of the painting. Did you define like the purpose of this painting, right? Why are you doing this painting? What's the purpose behind it? And it could be simple. I want to get better at color. I want to get better at drawing. I want to get better at just putting shapes down that are simply and accurate from the photo that I'm looking at. Could be very simple. There's no wrong answer there. But if you have a definition and like, this is your focal point, and like, over here and all out there is not my focal point. So you put something down and you're like, whoa, that's so intense color that it's pulling away from my focal point way up here. I did that wrong. You see that focus you bring within that? It took me away from what I want to do. I remember years ago doing landscape painting, like plein air painting in Florida, with a bunch of wonderful artists. And there'd be a lot of artists that you kind of look over and they're kind of like doing this thing. It's like the zombie painter. They're on a tree and they're thinking leaf, 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 leaf. And it's the same stroke over and over. Like they fell asleep. Then you just like look over to them and you go, wake up. And they're like, oh my God, what was I doing this whole time? What was I doing? And we do that with our paintings. It could be anything. And we're just all of a sudden, we're thinking about the podcast we're listening to. We're trying to listen to Chris ramble on about a bunch of stuff and yelling into the microphone, right? Something like that. And then we look at our painting and we go, wow, there's all this stuff. I did a bunch of work, but it didn't make any difference in the painting. What was I doing? What was I doing? And specifically within painting, like yesterday was all about big shapes, right? I defined what I wanted to work on as I'm doing it, like not focusing on the little details, but big shapes, big brush. Did I get that bigger shape down? No, scrape it off. Bigger shape? No, scrape it off. The drawing, is that in the right place? No, scrape it off or put it back or move it around. Now, today, it's a little bit different. I'm thinking about these little tiny moments within this hand, which is dangerous sometimes because you can think about all the tiny moments and all of a sudden you back up and you're like, oh, that looks like a terrible fist where all the fingers are together. And that's what I'm feeling right now. But it's a different set of focus. You can see one is more like bigger, the other one's smaller, but still where you bring attention, like you've defined what you're working on and you're doing that. Yeah, better. Oops. I'm reading, let me know if that was helpful, by the way. I'm reading Bill Anderson's autobiography, A Fascinating Tale. He made his own fiddles by hand, as well as paint from natural pigments for his first murals in the villages nearby. Oh, cool. Bill Alexander. We talked at one point about making your own pigments. Someone asked about it. And if you're a really good artist, you know, and the reason why you're making all that stuff and getting very deep into like the bare metal, we'll say, of oil painting is because you can't find the pigments out there that you need to make the paintings that you really want to paint, you know? Like you're in galleries and stuff and you're a full-time artist and you're doing that, fine, perfect. But if you're starting out, it's and you want to make your own pigments, because I've done it. I've gotten the powder, I've grinded it up, like, oh, look at all this pigment. It's procrastination disguised as preparation, in my opinion. It's best to do as many paintings as you can, figure out what you like and you dislike, you know, get through a few years of good and bad paintings, get some under your belt, and then go, you know what, I want to start making some pigment. Regardless of what Chris said, because he doesn't know what he's talking about, right? Awesome. Do that. If it helps, if anything that you do helps you get to the easel and paint more, do it. Do it. All day long, every day, right? But if it's like, oh, I got to spend a few hours or days making up this paint before I can even start this painting, if it's pulling you away from production, from learning, from getting to the skill, cut it out. Cut it out right away. Because here's what can happen, Bob. Here's what can happen. You create this environment of oil painting where it becomes very arduous to even start. And then all of a sudden something happens in life, like life takes over. It could be, you know, a million different things. And you don't have that time. You don't have that motivation. And then you're faced with having to grind paints just to get started, right? Something like that. Well, you're most likely not even going to start. It's a hindrance to your process. So streamline as much as you can. Once you get that habit down and you're like, this is not going to deter me, then mix up your paint. Definitely. Dive deep into that. But the habit, the getting to it, the doing it will always be the most important. Like I said before, you could have $1 million studio, $1 million paints, the best ideas on the planet, the best skill on the planet. You could be Rembrandt and have the world at your fingertips, everything ready for you to make the best painting on the planet. But if you don't get to it, it's going to amount to nothing. It's going to be a big goose egg. Or goose yolk. Okay, Dennis says, I started out with drawing and color pencil and always said I'd never touch oil painting, and now it's all I want to do. That's good. And it'd be good to go back to like the color pencil as well, or like add in, you know, that experience of color pencil and stuff into your painting process. You can paint over, I think you can paint over color pencil. It'd be interesting to figure that out. It'd be kind of cool. Like I love sometimes on a painting, I'll bring in some graphite and I'll draw out certain things in there. I really like Juan Ruiz paintings, R-U-I-Z. Love his, their artwork. It's fantastic. A lot of line, it'll be big, thick paint strokes. And then all of a sudden there'll be just a bunch of graphite marks in different ways. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. Yeah, take that experience, make it your own. Now, the one thing that I didn't get to when we were talking about sharing your work, and I think this actually changed how I think about things. I was watching a YouTube video where Tyler, the creator, I believe that's his name. He's been referenced that way, but anyway, I guess it doesn't matter. He said, you're going to work really hard. And he was talking about music. You're going to work really hard on this. You spent all this money, all this time, all this effort on your art form. And then to share it, you're just going to throw it on Facebook and say, hey, here's my song. Hey, here's my painting. And then go on to the next painting. And he was like, no, like if you care that much about your creative work, which you do, the creativity doesn't stop when you varnish the painting. Yeah, like it can continue on through the marketing and the selling process, the sharing process, right? Continue that creativity. Give your artwork the breath that it needs, the fire that it needs underneath its rocket to get it, to really shoot it out into space, right? That's what it needs. You love it enough, you spend enough time on it. Yeah, and I'm thinking about the painting that I finished before this one. And I'm like, I really like that painting. So I really need to focus on sharing that better. It's something I need to work on. I spent all the time and effort on that painting. And for it to just sit in my garage, no, thank you. No, I'd rather give it away to someone that was like, oh my gosh, I love this. This painting really affected me. Take it, please, because it will bring you joy. But for me, it'll just sit in the garage. Let's just give it away, right? I would rather do that than it to sit and no one to be able to see it and enjoy it. It's so important. Yeah, care enough about your artwork to share your artwork. So important. And I know it's hard. I know it's tough. You're like, oh, I don't want to share my artwork. Just start small. There's levels of sharing. It's easy to put it on social media. You're just starting out. Get used to putting your artwork on social media. Whatever your favorite platform is, throw it out there. Could be Instagram, which I hate. Facebook, I hate. Cara, Blue Sky, not too bad. Cara is pretty nice. Cara. Look that up, guys. Another social platform for artists. The only thing I don't like about Cara is, you have to censor any body parts that they don't like. But that's the same with like Twitch and YouTube and a lot of places. So there we go. But have that kind of level of sharing, right? What level are you at right now? And if you're just starting out, definitely share your work. Share everything you do. Like overshare it. Like, hey, I just started this oil painting. It's my first oil painting I ever did. And then, we're going to be critical about it. We're going to say, oh, it's awful. I'm so bad. But here's my very first oil painting. And someone's going to chime in. They're going to be like, what? That's beautiful. Are you kidding me? It's so subjective. And we're our worst critic. Go ahead and share it. The next level, I think, on sharing stuff, still you're not in person, it's still digital, and I think probably the most important thing we can do as artists right now is create your own website. Go get your URL. Who here that's listening to my voice right now has their own URL in their name? Not your pseudonym. I'm talking about your name, your actual name, like Chris Bevan. That's me. There's only one other Chris Bevan on the planet. He has a different middle name. He's my cousin. So, spelled the way I spell my name. Anyway, but I have that URL, that .com. And it was not available for years, and I waited for it to come available. As soon as I found it available, I bought it. Before then, it was like C. Bevan. And then I had pseudonyms before that. Right? But owning your own space. Too often we build our castles on someone else's land. We're like, oh, I don't need a website. I'll just use Facebook as a website. And then one day you decide you want to post the beautiful nude, tasteful nude that you painted. And Facebook's like, you're banned. We deleted your account and everything. Goodbye. And you're like, what? I had 30,000 followers and most of my income. And this happened, by the way, this happens a lot. That's why I'm mentioning this. I had 30,000 followers and most of my income is based on the advertisement through Facebook. And now you're telling me it's gone and I can never get that back and those followers are gone? Yes. Your entire business plan is completely dead. So don't build your castle on someone else's land. That's the important part about a website. So important. I was going to make a video. I got some pictures of this, but this is related. I wanted to make a video about this because I did this YouTube short of a drawing I did of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And a person that's looking better, just kind of just chunks of paint first, and then it's kind of making a hand. It feels like a hand there, but not like, it's not yelling at you hand. It's like I'm paint and also a hand. Anyway, sidetrack there. But a person watched that short of that drawing that I did of the Tyrannosaurus Rex, which it was a really good drawing. I was still happy with that drawing. It was probably one of my most watched videos, that short on my channel. And a person commented like, that's AI. You didn't draw that. And I can tell you didn't draw that because the signature is so small. You totally didn't do that. And, I don't take anything like that super serious, right? And I laughed at that. I was like, haha, yeah, I can understand that. Maybe it's pretty good. Like, I look at AI stuff, I look at artwork, and I'm like, if it's that really good, is it AI? Like, oh, I hate that kind of feeling now that we have to go through that. But I wasn't worried about it. I could laugh it off. You know why? You go to my website, look at that drawing, and you can see the entire process of me drawing through it. And not only that, I have pictures of the person that bought it recently with them in front of it. So I was going to make a whole video about the importance of creating your own website, because you get good enough and people are going to go, no, that's not a real person, that's AI. But if they follow like your website or something, they go to where it was actually made and they go, holy crap, no, someone actually painted this. Look at the process within this. They shared the whole thing. Then we have a leg to stand on, and we have to think about those things. I have to think about those things right now. So it was eye-opening that someone had a comment, because I do the same thing. I don't know if you do the same thing to other paintings that are out there, because this computer crap is getting so good that it's hard to tell the difference. Too much slop. Taking a lot of money away from great artists. Yeah. Anyway, just not get onto that. But that's another really important reason to have your own website on the internet. You can post anything you want on there, within reason. Actually, not within reason, right? As long as you do the right things to it, and it can be completely 100% yours. And then the next step on that, because we're talking about like the levels of sharing that we have, so it's not too arduous. The next step from that is you're selling on your website. Like, it took me a bit to, as a web developer originally, I used WordPress, and I developed through that and found the right plugins to use to be able to sell on my website that I like. And it took a while, but now I'm selling on my website. I don't go through a third party that takes a percentage of the money. Like almost 100% of the money that I make on my website goes directly to me. That costs a bit more money, and it's like the next step, really, because that stroke right there needs to go away. It was terrible. See, that's what we're talking about. Dennis, I think Dennis asked us, but the whole focus thing. You put it down, and what effect did it make? Bad. Remove it. What effect did it make? Really good. Leave it. That'll slow you down right away. That will slow you down. Like, and finding your own pacing too, because you could pace your artwork like I pace my artwork, but that's That's how I do it. So maybe it is the same for you, and that's fine, but find your own pacing. Yeah. Maybe you have to work really fast. Maybe it's got to be like your arm is like all over the place, and that's what makes you happy. And then afterward, it's all about fixing and changing and editing. That's great too. Chris says, I'm an artist, not a salesman. All due respect. Yeah, I hate being a salesman. I hate being sold to. I hate when people come to my door and go, hey, blah, blah, blah. I had 5 years away. And now 100%, dude, you're not going to like upset me because I'm right there with you in a lot of ways. Like, even if you were like, I'm never sharing my work ever, I throw it in the garbage when I'm done with it. Awesome. That's cool too. Like, do you? But I hate the whole sales process. I don't like it. Like I was talking about the pop-up art show that I was part of last night. And it was a deeper focus on connection, not sales. Connection with other people, conversation, and just enjoying this creative thing together as a community. It was wonderful. It was absolutely like, this is what I want. And then every now and then people were like, hey, can I buy that from you? And you're like, yeah, sure. How much is it? Oh, there's the price right there, $65. Here's my Venmo. Go for it. Am I like grabbing people off the street and going, hey, come here, look at my work? No. I was like, hey, let's have a conversation about art, you know? Or who are you? Are you an artist? Awesome. What do you paint? You know, I bought a painting last night. Actually, I sold $45 worth of paintings and then bought a $75 painting. So there you go. It's more about buying work than it is selling work. But I understand, Chris. Like, I hate the whole hardcore sales tactic. I remember when I was in Hawaii on the weekend in Honolulu, there's art on the zoo fence. Maybe it's still there. I'm not sure. But a lot of people get together and they show their artwork on the zoo fence. You know, it's outside because the weather's great out there. Like, it's always the same almost all the time. So it's pretty consistent. But there were artists out there like myself that would just sit and have conversations with other artists and tourists that are walking by. And then there were other artists that relied so heavily on that being their income that they attacked people that would walk by, basically. And and I said, okay, you do you, but I do not like that tactic. I would not do that. I would not do it. So we find our way through sharing. I think sharing is very important, Chris. I think it's very important. I want to see your work, Chris. Shoot me an email with your work. I'd love to see it. Sharing is nice. I feel like if you care about it, you'll follow it through your whole process all the way to the end. You know, it reminds me of a friend of mine here, really talented artist, older guy. I was at, I can't remember where, and it was like an art guild show or something close to here, and he ended up winning Best in Show with the painting. And I got to talking to him because a really cool guy, right? Older guy. And he's like, I have like hundreds of paintings at home. He's like, I've never shared them. This is the first time I've ever shared my work. And I'm like, dude, you got to get out there. It's so good. We want to see your work. We love it. You know? And I'm not sure why he never shared. Like, it was just, and that's fine. I remember years ago, because I can connect with you, Chris, here. I remember years ago, we were living in New Orleans, downtown New Orleans. I've been all over the place, by the way. And I was talking to a person there, another artist, and I really upset them. And I said, if I die, like, I have a whole house full of artwork and painting. And if I die, and then they interrupt me and they said, oh yeah, you die and then you get discovered and you're really famous and you'll be happy with that, like Van Gogh. And I said, no. If I die and the house burns down with all my paintings in it, I'm totally fine with it. And they got really mad at me. They got really upset. And you know, if someone told me that, right, like Chris, if you tell me that right now, awesome, dude. Like, I love that you know your current trajectory for that. But I ended up changing, Like, I had piles of artwork here from 2016, and I went to a show here at the Arts Alliance, and I was like, you know what? I'm tired of carting this around. We've moved 10 different places, and the paintings are getting all scarred up because I'm moving them everywhere, and they're big, like 18 by 24, 16 by 20. I spent weeks and weeks on these paintings of these figures, and I put them for sale for $75 a pop. Build up the wall with them. And I think it was a First Friday came through, and pretty much all of them sold. And then I'm like, well, I have a bunch more. Let's raise the price a little bit, $95. Filled up the wall, $95. It all sold for all those paintings, right? And I'm like, okay, I still have a bunch more. Fill up the wall. Now there are 125. Most of them sat on there for a while, but eventually they all sold. But I just wanted to get rid of them. I just wanted to, people would see them and go, oh my gosh, it's fantastic. I love these. And they revel in the artwork for years. They give it a beautiful home. And I think that's what really changed me. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is good. It can be good. And I'm lucky. I'm going to say that right now. I'm lucky because I'm in a community right now it's a beautiful community for artists. And it's more about community than it is like, and we all know we do it for the love and maybe some extra little bit of income. Maybe we'll pay for dinner once a month, twice a month. Be great. That'll be fantastic. So find your level there. Find your level. And it could be the simple, like I said, doesn't have to be galleries right away, doesn't have to be selling right away, but it could be like, hey, check out the artwork that I just posted on my socials. There you go. Just throw it up there. Get it out there. Or nothing at all. That's totally up to you. Do you have a community like Discord? I'm on Discord. I created a server, but never used it yet. Maybe eventually. Oh, what's my email? Let me throw it in there real quick. It's pretty easy. If you know my name, it's chrisbevan.com. So Chris at chrisbevan.com right there. Same. So if you know my name, you know everything except my passwords. Chris Bevan, Chris at chrisbevan.com. The admin password is Chris Bevan. No, I'm kidding. No. It's Chris Bevan 123. That's the password. Yeah, shoot me an email. I'd love to see your work. I love seeing people's work. Ask me questions about it. Hey, what do you think about this? Oh, that's so wonderful. What do you think about that? What do you think about this? I hate this. Look at it. It reminds me of that meme where, there's a pole and there's this sign on it. Says, have you seen this cat? Because it's awesome. And it's a palace cat. Have you seen this bird? Because it's awesome. I'll do that. I had this idea and I still think I want to do it because I'm collecting a whole bunch of paintings. Too many paintings. I'm getting to that point where I'm like, I hate moving these around. I don't want any more because I paint so often, and paint continuously that it happens. Like you just start collecting them, I love filling up the wall. But I have this idea of just taking those paintings and just tacking them up somewhere around the city, like someplace. Maybe I'll put a little sign. Have you seen this painting? Because it's awesome. Just on a pole, like a street pole somewhere. I don't know. Leave it there. Like found object artwork. I love that idea. Where it's more about the creativity of it, more about the process of it rather than the selling of it. I love that. And there's so many people that, get upset about it that way. No, you have to trade money for it. Oh, I don't know. That little paper thing with a dead president on it, not near as important as the time and effort that I put into that painting. Sometimes I feel that way. What's really fulfilling, what's really wonderful is seeing a person's face when they see your painting and their connection to it. That is what's important. Yesterday, it was a painting a friend of mine picked up, and she was like, "Oh, it's so cute. I love this." It was a painting I did forever ago of like a trinket, one of my wife's trinkets. And she really liked it. She was like, gushing over this little thing. And she put it back down, but she came back later and she's like, "Oh, I love that. It's so cute." And I'm like, "Take it. Please take it." And she's like, "No, I can't do that. I can't take it." I'm like, "No, I love that you find that within it, that you have that feeling of it." And she's like, "No, I'll have to give you some money for it." "How much?" And I was like, $5. And she gave me 10. That's the interaction I like. So when I was in Hawaii selling artwork on the fence, on the zoo fence, here's another story that's very similar. It gives you an idea of how I feel about selling stuff and how it's more about connection and community. And it can be more fulfilling. I don't think any interaction, maybe a couple of interactions. Like I sold a bunch of artwork out there because, people are there. And I, sold some landscapes and things like that when I was selling on the fence. And I did well. It was good. I wasn't like going to pay for a mortgage or anything from it, but it was happy. I was happy selling, and sharing. I wasn't trying to. I'm not like pulling people off and saying, "Hey, look at this painting," right? But I remember this one interaction viscerally. Every other interaction, maybe a couple of them I remember because they were poignant, right? But there is a younger guy that comes up, and he's looking at one of my paintings, a little 6x6 painting. And he's like, "Can you tell me a little bit about the narrative or, why you painted this? Like what's behind it?" And it was like a very dark painting. There was a little person in the center. And it was just a little person and a light over top of it. And I'm like, "Yeah, I call this Epiphany." It was an Epiphany painting. It was about like this big change in life, about this, like at any moment, something huge, whether good or bad, could happen in our lives. And it was like this big light kind of shining down, changing this person. One day they were this person, the next day they were somebody completely different. I'm explaining to this guy. And as I'm explaining to him, he's a younger person, and he's getting teary-eyed as I'm explaining this. And I'm getting chills just even thinking about it right now as I'm thinking about it. Like it was a visceral moment. And he's like, "Yeah, I got some really big things going on in my life right now." And you could tell that he was hurting. Like there were some issues, right? There were some issues there. And I swear to you, I was about to grab that painting off the fence and just say, "Here, please take this. Hopefully this helps you through what you're going through right now. Hopefully it reminds you of something positive and can get you through your day or your weeks, or your months of whatever's going on." But then before I could say that, before I could grab it, he's like, "I'm going to buy that right now. I want it." And he grabbed it off the fence. I remember that interaction above all else. Like my entire time, like selling on that fence in Hawaii was made positive, made worth it because of that one interaction, that one effect that I could make on someone's life. Isn't that amazing? A little stupid painting. they'll probably cherish that little stupid painting, for the rest of their life. And I think about that and I'm like, I can't wait to just continue painting every single day. That's the kind of interaction I'm talking about, why it's important. Like if we put ourselves out there into a community, into sharing our artwork, we open ourselves for so much positive. Yes, we can open ourselves for a lot of negative too. Definitely. We can get deep into that salesman aspect and hate everything about it. Or we can change a person's life on a level that we never thought possible. Oh, Dennis says, your palette looks so organized. Just over time. Oh, that's one thing is, you mentioned that. Oh, I could go into tangents forever. Oh my God. Like I'm about to end, just letting you know. Let me end on a few statements that I want to say. Just want to bring this up. My next level of sharing, I want to say, of my artwork, and I'll come back to your statement, Dennis, getting better at presentation, because I tend to denigrate my artwork way too much. And I noticed that last night. And it wasn't a very good presentation of my artwork, and I could really do better there. And I saw that yesterday. I saw the other people that brought that love into their artwork in the presentation as well. And I was like, okay, I could do better. So that's my next level. As far as palette organization, here's a quick tip to help you paint everything all the time, every day. You'll always notice I have white and my yellow and my red and my black, all my colors in the same location. The only thing that's weird right now are these three colors. I usually don't paint with these colors, but my Zorn palette, there's always the same place on the palette. If every time you come to your painting and you're always putting your colors in different locations on your palette, you're always going to be searching for where that's at. If you have like that consistency, it's almost like removing that part from your brain. Okay. Something else you don't have to think about that will confuse you, that you can use that extra part of your brain for more focus on, the canvas itself, that kind of thing. So that's always helpful. So choose where you want that to go. You could have like usually mine was based on value at one point. It's based a little bit closer to like the rainbow, or something. Some logical way to put your paints out on your palette that's the same all the time, that makes sense for you. And like I said, like if these three colors here, and this brown I was just using the other day to help Omar out with his paints. If I had these three colors on my palette all the time, it would go white to the lemon yellow after that, and then the yellow ochre after that, and then it would be cadmium red, and then alizarin crimson after that. So we got the white, the two yellows. It's more like value. We're getting a little bit darker, right? But we have their two yellows together. It's split primary palette, basically. Then we have our two reds together. We're going a little bit cooler as well. It's getting a little bit cooler as well, right? So white, yellows, reds, and this is how I do it. You figure out how you're going to do it for your brain, right? And then after that would be the blue, black, and my earth tones. It would all be at the top, and that's usually how I do things. But I haven't been doing that for a while, and maybe I should get back to it. It's a good idea. Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate that. That's another thing about sharing your work, sharing what you're doing, like especially this stream, getting individuals like yourself to challenge what I say every day is wonderful. Egg yolk in oil paint. I have no idea. And my initial was like, heck no, don't do that. It's not going to work. But then I've learned over the years, why am I messing with my hair? Being stupid. I've learned over the years that I tend to want to say no on things right away before I even try it. Right. I'm getting older. I'm getting crotchety. I'm getting stuck in my own ways. But I think there's so much out there, and being open to that and going, oh, let's try that. Like painting this guy on copy paper or cheaper paper that I thought wouldn't work or wouldn't. Yeah. Wow. It's working well. It's doing cool. It's fantastic. So sharing your work, getting out there with other artists can do that. Thank you so much. chrisbevan.com right there. If you want to see my artwork, purchase my artwork. That's how you can support me on my website. Here's the sales pitch. Oh, it's so terrible. Or you can just sit here and enjoy. You don't even have to like and subscribe. Sign up for my newsletter, all that kind of stuff. You don't or do, it's up to you. It's fantastic. I'm happy that you're here. You make my day, my constant daily art practice go by a lot faster and so much more interesting, regardless of what kind of time frame I have or where my brain's at every single day. It's super fantastic for you guys to be here. So I appreciate you so much. And I'll shut up now, give my voice some rest, and I'll be back here rambling tomorrow on this painting. Not sure how it's looking. It'll get there. I'll keep working on it. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend and Saturday. Bye-bye.